Hello everybody, Realm Builder Guy here, and welcome back to a new Victoria 3 video here on the channel. Welcome back, of course, to the channel. It is the first true official Dev Diary update video here on the channel, and it is about pops and pop mechanics in Victoria 3. I'm really curious about this one. Yes, I've already perused it, made a couple of notes, but I want to walk you guys through this a little bit. Again, thank you for everybody that's been watching and commenting and liking the Victoria 3 stuff that's been on the channel so far. It's really been amazing and honestly a bit overwhelming, the growth on the channel since that first Victoria 3 video hit. And I'm super excited about this. And if you don't mind, if you enjoy this kind of news and update stuff, hitting that like button helps. Subscribing so you don't miss out on any Victoria 3 news and content, as well as any other strategy game stuff that I've got going on here on the channel, including something interesting about World War I and history and stuff coming here very shortly, next week actually. So that would be greatly appreciated. If you want to find out ways that you can support the channel, there are links down in the description. As far as Patreon go, Nexus GG store, where you cannot buy Victoria 3, but you could get Victoria 2 if you haven't done so already. And I do actually recommend, if you have the money, get Victoria 2. It'll get you in the Victoria 3 general mindset. Obviously, mechanics, there are going to be some changes, but it helps you understand what to expect from this game because it is different than EU4 as an example, or Stellaris and stuff like that. I do recommend that, even though it's a little dated graphically in the UI. You really got to kind of get used to it, and you realize how good UI has become over time in Paradox games. But it's so much fun and so much replayability, and you'll still play it because honestly, I don't expect Victoria 3 to come out for about a year. So you've got a year to play Victoria 2, get 1,000 hours into it, and absolutely love it. So it is about pops, and let's get into it. So pops were first introduced in the very first Victoria game, and that's the first introduction of pops in general, to represent your country's population. So it's pop means part of population. Pop mechanics have since snuck into Paradox titles like Stellaris and Imperator. But this in-depth population simulation is what Victoria is about, and we're going to bring you a system with more depth than ever before. Well, that's exciting news. In Victoria 3, pops are the country's engine. They work in the industries, they pay the taxes, they operate the government institutions, and they fight the wars. They're born, they die, they change occupation, they migrate, and they organize, get angry, and start revolutions. Every pop is visualized so you can see which demographic sports the best mustache. Note that pop portraits are very much a work in progress. As you can see, this is definitely clergy, and it is quickly to see. I mean, it says it, French Catholic clergyman. But secure, I'm assuming his lifestyle is secure. His lifestyle needs are secured. So that's something to see there. So, and we're going to look at this screenshot in more detail here in a second. You, the player, might be in charge of the country, but you're not in charge of the pops and can't manipulate them directly. Yet everything you do to the country affects them, and they in turn will react in what they perceive to be their own best interests. A large part of your game will consist of trying to sate your population's appetites for material goods or political reform. Most actions you will take aren't to the benefit of every pop in your nation, and by making life better for one population, you inadvertently upset another demographic. And that's the key thing. I mean, that's life in general. You know, there's a give and take to everything. You know, if you go heavy with the upper classes and benefit them, expect a lower class revolt. Be curious if you benefit the lower class and kind of try to get rid of the upper classes, if that would mean that there's a chance of a coup. I mean, they're interesting dynamics that they can really play with here in the game. And that's what makes Victoria 3. I had somebody ask in the comments, you know, they never played Victoria 2. But what makes it so great? And it's really this, that your people matter, your population matters, your country is truly alive. Whereas I would say in a game like EU4, which I love, your country's not really alive in that sense. Imperator, it's a little bit more. Stellaris, you know, I'd say it's kind of in between Imperator and EU4, but pops do matter, but they're not quite as vocal as they are vocal for for an AI non-existent population, but as vocal as, say, an Imperador, and this takes it to the next step, and kind of Victoria was the precursor to it all. So the most important aspect of POPs are their professions, which reflect the types of jobs it carries out in the building where they work. So again, buildings, a key dynamic to this. So you put a building in a province, a factory, you're going to have more people in the profession in those factories. A POP's profession determines its social class and can affect its wages, political strength, what other professions it might qualify for, and particularly which political interest groups it's prone to supporting, which you'll hear lots more about in future. So that's the interesting thing here, political interest groups. They're not saying political parties. Obviously, in Victoria 2, we had parties and not interest groups. Here, they're honing in on the parties, on the interest groups. And so those interest groups are always present, maybe. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I know they talked about it on Twitter, how they want to integrate political parties within the interest group's dynamic. And that'll be an interesting coding because obviously different countries, different names. Are they going to go with historical parties? Are you going to have the Social Democrats in Germany as an example? Are you going to have the Whigs and the Democrats and the Democratic Republicans or the Federalists? Granted, the Federalists aren't really a thing anymore in the 1830s, or the future Republican Party in the United States. It's very, very interesting. And definitely a work in progress, but they said they will not put in political parties at the detriment of interest groups. Political interest groups are here to stay. So it'll be interesting to see how and if they can balance that out. And maybe it's a future DLC patch that comes out. They bring out interest groups because otherwise it would delay it even further. And then once they figure it out in balancing, they have the political party DLC, which I'm sure would sell really well. Some of the POP professions you will encounter in Victoria 3 are artisans. Now, this is some, not all. Aristocrats, capitalists, bureaucrats, officers, shopkeepers. I'm assuming shopkeepers is the replacement for artisans because artisans were essentially the shopkeepers. Machinists, so these would be the craftsmen, I believe it was called, in Victoria 2. Laborers and peasants, which would be farmers, probably Victoria 2. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Investing in industries that provide job opportunities for the kinds of professions you want to encourage in your country is key to the society building game of Victoria 3. So that's interesting. So you invest in the industries to bring a certain type of POP and profession to a certain state or area in the country. National focus is one area that I used a lot in Victoria 2 to, if I'm like, I need more XYZ in a given state, so I'm going to put a national focus in that state for that, to attract that. So every variation of profession, culture, religion, and workplace in the world gets its own unique POP. At any given time, this results in many tens of thousands of POPs in the world working, migrating, procreating, and agitating. Again, I will look at this screenshot in more detail here in a second. The people that make up a POP are distinguished into workforce and dependents. Members of the workforce keep the buildings in the game operational and collect a wage from them in return. Those who cannot or aren't permitted to be officially employed are considered dependents. They collect only a small income from odd jobs and government programs. Very interesting. I like this dynamic. Laws affect who is included in each category. At game start, most countries do not accept women working and collecting a wage outside the home, but by reforming laws governing the rights of women, more dependent POPs will enter the workforce over time. By abolishing child labor, the amount of income dependents bring home will decrease, but will make it easier to educate your populace, increasing their overall literacy. After a bloody war, many dependents of soldiers may be left without sufficient income, and you may decide to institute pensions to help your population recover. Oh, I'm loving this. I'm loving this dynamic. Absolutely fantastic. In short, nothing in your country runs without POPs, and everything about your country affects those POPs, who in turn provide new opportunities and challenges during your tumultuous journey through the Victorian era and beyond. All right, there's so much more to come. But this is all for this week. You will hear much more from me in future Dev Diaries. Next week, Martin will return to explain something quite central to the game, capacities. All right. Now, let's take a look at this new screenshots. So this gentleman here, let's call him aristocracy or capitalist, one or the other. He is Turkish. The state is listed here. His religion is Sunni. So we have that listed there. Literacy at 50% for this whole pop. Now, it's not this individual character, but for the entire pop. Discrimination, interesting. That's a part of the dynamic. How many radicals, how many loyalists are in there? What interest group he belongs to? The political strength of this pop, and the net income. So, okay, I should have just read aristocrats in Ottoman Empire. And so this symbol here is an aristocrat. Could have also been capitalists. Just, whatever. So here's the population, money in total, workforce, dependents. So you have that dynamic, the difference there. And 853 pounds from subsistence farms. So I wonder if this is the total population or just the population of this pop. So I don't know. Speculation. All right, wealthy landowners, old money with old connections. As owners of farms and plantations, they contribute some of their profits to the investment pool. Okay, so they are the owners of farms and plantations, so their income is derived from subsistence farms. So this is what it looks like when you click on this specific pop. And this is where the income money comes from. And this is the total population. You can see this pop is growing. Aristocrats are part of the upper class. Political interests are represented as the landowners. So then this little windmill here, remember on the previous screenshot, I'm like, I don't know, is that a tech? I think that was the art and design video I did. So that shows a landowner interest group. Interesting. So aristocrats, I always want to say aristocrats. Aristocrats in Ottoman Empire. So the population of 244,000. Political strength, 1.55 million. Okay, so this is the pop in the state of Diyarbakir, and the total aristocratic population of the entire Ottoman Empire is 244,000. Aristocrats in the Ottoman Empire support the local governors by 74.8%, armed forces, Sunni, madrasas, other interest groups. So this shows their political interest groups and where they are aligned. Okay, only pops with adequate wealth can become aristocrats. Potential increases with greater wealth, and to a lesser degree literacy. So wealth more important than literacy. I mean, you can see literacy 50%. Pops whose culture face discrimination take a much longer time. Officers and bureaucrats have a particularly easy time in basically developing up and upgrading or migrating or becoming, advancing, demoting, promoting. That's the word I'm looking for. Promotion and demotion, for promoting to this pop level. So discrimination is also dynamic. So I'm assuming, like laborers and peasants probably be discriminated against in a given country versus the upper echelons of society. All right, there you have it. The very first Dev Diary #1 All About Pops done and dusted. Some really interesting stuff in there. I would like to know, of course, what you think. So leave those comments down below. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, and let me know if you'd like some Victoria 2 content here on the channel as well to tide us over until Victoria 3 comes along. So until next time, I am Realm Builder Guy, and I will talk to you soon.